What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. I just got done watching the Federated Auto Parts 400 from Richmond International Speedway, and I have to say that the race, honestly, in my opinion, was not a fantastic race at Richmond, but it was a solid race at Richmond International Speedway. We saw a lot of comers and goers throughout the race tonight. We saw a lot of drivers drive from the back to the front. Before the race even began tonight, though, Kyle Busch actually ended up failing inspection twice for the green. He would have to drive all the way from the back of this race. He would get up to the front pretty quickly, though. Well, up to the mid-pack of the race really quickly, though. Also, Christopher Bell had to start at the back as well. He would end up driving through the field as well. Meanwhile, let's talk about the beginning of this race. Austin Dillon drove all the way at the beginning of this race to the lead after about lap 21 in this race. He would pass Kevin Harvick early in the race, and he would take off in this race. And then the competition caution will come out on lap 30. A lot of people thought Austin Dillon would probably lose some positions. Not. He would end up having the best pit stop at the time, and he would have a really good stop and get off pit road first. And then on the restart, Austin Dillon would get passed by Denny Hamlin a few laps later in the race. And then Denny Hamlin was able to pull away from Austin Dillon. He didn't pull away from Austin Dillon. Austin Dillon kept his distance with Denny Hamlin, but Denny Hamlin held off Austin Dillon. Coming to the line of stage one, Denny Hamlin was able to pick up the stage win in this race, followed by Austin Dillon, Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski, Kevin Harvick, Alex Bowman, Mark Truex Jr., Chase Elliott, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and Clint Bowyer. Right before stage two even took the green flag, Denny Hamlin and Austin Dillon would both end up getting speeding penalties. The two best cars at the early portion of the race. So those two would have to drive their way all the way up to the front. So that was the big story of this race. Because of this, Joey Logano would assume the race lead in this race. And it would be a battle between Joey Logano and Brad Keselowski. Brad Keselowski would be able to pass Joey Logano later in this race, about 40 laps into the stage. Meanwhile, Austin Dillon was driving his way up to the front. He had the best car at the beginning of this race. He was up to 10th within like 40 laps in the run. Denny Hamlin was really struggling, and his car just did not seem the same after he fell back to traffic. I think his car was meant for being out front instead of being in the back. So those were the issues for Denny Hamlin in this race. And Denny Hamlin really would end up never recovering this race, but Austin Dillon actually would. Like I said, no, Brad Keselowski would be able to pass Joey Logano for the race lead. He would pretty much dominate the stage. Meanwhile, Kevin Harvick decided to do some strategy in this race, but unfortunately, Kevin Harvick would make a big mistake. Now, the good news for Kevin Harvick was he is already locked into the round of 12, the next round of the NASCAR playoffs. But it would be a pretty big mistake as he would go 2 laps down after missing the pit road commitment line, the orange box on the right side of the pit road. Because of this, he would go 2 laps down. He was trying to play the poo pit stop strategy, but he would be able to come back and get 10th at the end of the stage. And Brad Keselowski was able to pull away and pretty much dominates the rest of the night. But Brad Keselowski was able to get the lead at the end of this, and Brad Keselowski was able to win stage 2, followed by Austin Dillon, incredible comeback. Mark Truex Jr. 3rd, Joey Logano 4th, Chase Elliott 5th, Kyle Busch 6th, Kurt Busch 7th, Eric Almirola 8th, Matt Kenseth was in a pretty good night at the time in 9th, and Kevin Harvick came back and finished 10th at the end of the stage. There was a lot of strategy going on in this race. This would actually be the final caution in this race. We would go green for the rest of the race. We only had 3 or 4 cautions in this race. That was honestly really impressive to see. So the battle for the win would come later in this race, where Brad Keselowski would be able to take the race. And pretty much Brad Keselowski, like I said, would end up dominating the second half of this race. But we would start seeing a lot of strategy in this race. You could either do a 1-stop strategy, or you could do a 2-stop strategy where you only had to pit twice or you only pitted once. Brad Keselowski So Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano's guys decided to do the 2-stop strategy. Kevin Harvick, Ronnie Childers played that card, in my opinion, way too early in this race. And then another mistake would happen late in this race, about 60 laps to go. Austin Dillon, who looked like he had the best car, was driving his way back up to the front. After dropping to about 8th, he was driving his way back up to the front, up to trying to get by for 3rd. Unfortunately, he decided to come to pit road to start the strategy so he could end up getting the race lead. Unfortunately, he would miss pit road. He did not touch the commitment line box, so it really wasn't a major mistake for Austin Dillon. It was a mistake because it cost him the win in this race. But Austin Dillon would basically save himself from going 2 laps down, having to drive all the way back up. He would basically save himself from having troubles, but he would lose 3 seconds, which cost him. Austin Dillon, after the strategy, would have the race lead, but he would get past with around 30 laps to go in this race, actually 45 laps to go in this race, and Brad Keselowski would take lead 45 laps to go. He would be able to hold off Mark Truex Jr., who was 2.5 seconds back, and Brad Keselowski was able to hold off Truex Jr. and score his 4th win of the season, which is a very, very big statement victory for Brad Keselowski, as this 750 horsepower package, and this is the same tire combination that we are going to be using at Phoenix for the championship race. So huge congratulations to Brad Keselowski on winning tonight's race. Let's go through and talk about the race results. Brad Keselowski won, had a dominant car in this race, led the most laps. This is a major, major set point for Keselowski. Good run for Brad Keselowski. Mark Truex Jr. finished his second. Pretty good run for Truex as well. I thought Truex honestly would be one of the cars to beat. He was one of the cars to beat, but he really had to start about 15, so it kind of hurt him, and he really never had a chance to get up to lead, but second place is a very strong run. I think they're very happy about that. Joey Logano, really good run for Logano as well. Second straight third place finish for Logano. Great run there. Austin Dillon, man. Austin Dillon, honestly, was the most impressive driver in this race. I don't think there was another driver that I was like, I really wanted Austin Dillon to win this race, if we're going to be honest here. But unfortunately, Austin Dillon did not have anything at the end of this race. He fell too far back, and after his issues, and I think the tires kind of caught up to him. He had a couple mistakes, which I think cost him, but I think this is a very big statement win for Austin Dillon. Not a statement win, but a very big statement for Austin Dillon. I think it's a very good move for Austin Dillon. Chase Elliott finished his 5th. Great night for Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott is historically not very good here. Great run for Chase Elliott. Kyle Busch finished his 6th without Jacob Cantor on the pit box. So that's pretty impressive there. I thought if Kyle Busch had his regular crew chief of Adam Stevens, I think he would have performed a lot better. Kevin Harvick finished his 7th. Solid run for Kevin Harvick. Eric Almirola finished his 8th. Alex Bowman finished his 9th. And Clint Bowyer finished his 10th. Tyler Reddick gets an 11th place finish. So honestly, a really good night for RCR regardless. Denny Hamlin finished his 12th. He never really bounced back. Not a good night for Denny Hamlin. 2 back-to-back races where he kind of struggled, finished in really bad positions. Hopefully this is not a sign for bad times for Denny Hamlin, because he's a driver we all thought was going to be officially locked in around the championship 4. We'll see if that still remains. Kurt Busch finished his 13th. Cole Custer 14th. Christopher Bell 15th. Matt Kenseth 16th. Matt DiBenedetto 16th. Ricky Stenhouse 18th. He actually was in the top 10 a lot of the race tonight, but unfortunately he would end up getting a speeding penalty that would really cost him a strong run. Ryan Blaney finished his 19th. I think it's very likely that Ryan Blaney is going to have to go out there at Bristol and win the race. He's really good at Bristol, but a lot of times he does end up wrecking there as well. I think it is very likely that Ryan Blaney is going to be in a very, very trouble position going into that race. And then Ryan Preece finished his 20th. William Byron is another driver who really, really struggled tonight. He just did not seem to have it. I know that William Byron's not great. I don't think William Byron's that great either. I think his chances of getting eliminated in the round of 16 are very, very likely as well. Right after that, Eric Jones 22nd, Ryan Newman 23rd, Chris Buescher 24th, Mike McDowell 25th, Bubba Wallace 26th, Corey LaJoie 27th, 28th place Ty Dillon, 29th place Daniel Suarez, 30th John Nemechek, 31st place Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Johnson struggled all night long. Had damage early in the race. They did try to fix it. Really couldn't get it fixed. And 31st, not a good night. And no mention of Jimmy Johnson really night. NBC, it's his final season. You should be talking a little bit more about Jimmy Johnson. Quinn out 32nd. Brendan Poole 33rd. 34th, J.J. Ely. 35th, Joey Gates. 36th, Reed Sorensen. 37th, James Davison. And Timmy Hill finishes last in 38th place. So now let's go look at the playoff standings, and then we're going to get out of here and give you my score of this race. So Kevin Harvick and Brad Keselowski and Denny Hamlin are officially locked into the next round of the playoffs. Joey Logano is pretty much good to go. He's only a few points out right now at the moment of making it in. Truex, Austin Dillon, Chase Elliott, all I think are locked in. It gets interesting about where Eric Almirola is. Right now, Eric Almirola is sitting 7 points above the cutoff line. Kurt Busch also, they're actually tied They're 7 points above the cutoff line currently at the moment. Kyle Busch is about 20 points. He is really good at Bristol, though, so I'm really not worried about Kyle Busch right now. William Byron is currently sitting 7 points out of the side to cutoff, actually 3 points outside the cutoff line. Cole Custer, he's about 10 points out. And Matty D and Ryan Blaney are really struggling. Matty D and Ryan Blaney are pretty much going to have to go into Bristol, and they're going to have to go out there and win the race because I think they're in must-win situations. And I don't think anyone thought that Ryan Blaney was going to be a driver we thought was going to be on a round of 16, but I actually look back at his stats in these tracks, and man, he has not had a last couple races, especially, have not been really good for Ryan Blaney. Hopefully he turns around and doesn't crash at Bristol because he can either be great at Bristol or he struggles at Bristol. So now, let's go out and talk about my score for this race. In my opinion, the race was awesome to watch. It was better than I thought it was going to be at Richmond, especially since the Xfinity Series race earlier today. It was really good in the first half, and the second half wasn't as great. In my opinion, with all the strategy and all the comers and goers in this race, I am going to give this race a solid 8 out of 10 in this race. Like I said, with all the strategy and the comers and goers in this race, we saw a lot of awesome stuff in this race. There wasn't one complete dominant car. Well, Bryce actually had the dominant car in this race, but it looked like we were seeing like 4 or 5 guys dominate the race, and then Hamlin and Dillon made their mistakes. Dillon caught up, but Denny Hamlin could not come back from this race. So anyway, huge congratulations to Brad Keselowski on winning tonight's race at Richmond International Speedway. Next week is the round of 16 cutoff race at Bristol International Speedway. I am really excited because it is the night race at Bristol. Usually this is the better Bristol race than the first one. We'll have to see what happens there. So anyway, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video. Please like and subscribe to the channel, turn notifications on so you'll be notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Link in the description below for that, and comment your thoughts on tonight's race. What did you think of tonight's race? Let me know in the comments below. Anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video, and I will see you guys next time. Take care, everybody.